Gremlin here with the old Gremlin Gamer, and so I'm kind of doing a little follow-up video just to kind of cover some things that I wanted to in the last video and really didn't get a chance to. Just because there's really so many different systems in Skyrim, and with the different skill trees, there's a multitude of ways to build your character, different things to focus on, skills to learn. The other thing I was going to show is the importance of getting you a house. As I mentioned, I think in the last video, once you meet up with the Jarl and tell him what's happened to you with the dragon, and then you'll go on a short little quest where you'll go out to this tower just down the road here. You can see in the distance. And you fight off a dragon, you kill the dragon, everybody sees you kill the dragon, so everybody knows where the dragon's at. Yeah, that tower over there. So anyways, once you do that, then you basically have the ability to purchase a house. And the house in particular would be this one right here. It's called Breeze Home. And this is probably one of my favorite houses in the game, to be honest, even though it's small. In a way, Whiterun kind of is the main city in Skyrim. It's kind of located just dead center of the map for the most part. And a lot of your main important quests are tied to this location. Now, that's not to say there's not some other impressive cities in this game. There's Markarth way over here in the west, which is an old abandoned dwarven city. And then to the north here you have Solitude, which is another pretty impressive city with a really big castle, and it's built on this crazy natural arch. There are some, I guess the next biggest one would be Riften, way down here in the southeast. Oh, actually, where is Riften? Oh yeah, here we are. So Riften. Now another city that's still pretty good size, but it's really beat up and torn down, is the location of the Stormcloak Rebels stronghold, Windhelm. Another large city, a lot of different things going on here. But it's not a pretty location. The town has just seen better days. It's just beat up between war and neglect, and it's kind of down up here far north where it's just snowy and crappy. There are other towns. We do have here Morthal, smaller town. This was not one that you can purchase land, or I don't think you. I know you can't purchase a house there. I don't remember if you can purchase land in this area. I kind of think you can. Actually, my next thing that I was going to show, what I'm going to be working on next, since I've already got my Breezewood home, is you have the option to build a house. And one of the best locations that you get the option to is here just south of Riverwood, in this area here called Falkreath. So this is the actual town. Once again, you can't actually buy a house in this place, but he does give you rights to land, which allows you to build your house right here just off the coast of the lake. And it's really neat. It's probably one of my favorite places you can build your house. So anyways, places that you can buy houses, of course, would be Markarth, Solitude, Riften, and Whiterun, of course. Iverstead's another little small place. You don't really have the ability to buy anything there. And of the houses you can buy, the one in Riften's pretty modest. The one in Solitude is probably one of the more expensive houses you can buy. Also, the town of Dawnstar, there's really nothing there as far as houses. Winterhold is actually the college. And spoilers, if you complete that quest, you basically end up becoming the Archmage of Winterhold, which basically gives you your own personal suite in the College of Winterhold. Like when you first start the mission, you get a room, but you don't really have anything private. You literally become the head of the whole thing, and you have a big, nice private bedroom. It actually comes with an indoor garden for growing all kinds of uh, alchemy ingredients. You have enchanter's altar. You have alchemy lab. Tons of storage space. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's also, and I don't know if this is on the Switch version. I think it's an older, based on older version of the game, but there are some other properties that were added and replaced some other ones. Like there used to be a location you could buy over here and build a house. Now there's a house here that you can simply inherit or find. I forgot how you get it, but it's kind of cool. And there's another one too, somewhere up here in the mountains, I think. But anyways, since I did make the mistake of not showing the house before you get it furnished, I'll go ahead and just show you what you got after it's furnished. But basically, first off, it's going to cost you $5 just to buy the place. And when you buy it, it's not furnished. It does have a wooden cot upstairs that you can sleep on, so you can at least have that benefit. I don't think there's like anything to actually store stuff in. But there are a series of additions you can make. Each one costs about 250 gold, the exception being this room here. If you go for the alchemy lab, it'll cost you an additional 500, which is what I went with. Or you can turn it into a bedroom that would actually sleep 2 children if you decided to adopt some kids. There's some rugrats in the game you can adopt, which comes with some benefits. I chose not to do that this time, and I think it was like 350 for that. But basically, the additions would be your cooking area, your kitchen. Actually, I think it calls this the living area. Your kitchen. This is the loft area. And your bedroom. This room is already fully furnished for your housecarl Lydia, so this one's already taken care of. You don't actually have to do anything. And it even comes with this dresser and dresser here. Funny enough, she almost always hangs out in my room, which has its own little table.
What do you need, my thing?
And that's really one of the main things about having your own house is, for one, your bed. Your bed allows you to get a rested bonus whenever you sleep for at least 8 hours in-game time. That lasts for 8 hours in-game time. If you have kids, you actually get like a bonus on top of that, where you get, I think it says you wake with the love of a father or mother or whatever. And as I mentioned, I think before, or may have not got into this yet, you can become a werewolf or a vampire. I usually suggest waiting till you've pretty much played through all the main stuff and have acquired all the gold and loot that you want to buy things with, and bought all the things you want to buy. There's 2 reasons why. Werewolves, for the most part, you don't have to worry too much about that end of it as far as interacting with the public and them not being frightened of you, so long as you don't transform in front of them. Once you do that, everybody knows, and you might have issues with people, I think. But typically, you can still do business as usual. The downside is that whenever you're a vampire or werewolf, you can't get a well-rested bonus. Anytime you sleep, you'll just wake up, it'll say you didn't sleep well because of the beasts in your blood. Vampirism, on the other hand, will change the way you look. And eventually, it's also hard for you to be out in daylight. You'll slowly take health damage. But more importantly, it'll get to the point where you can't get people to interact with you and sell stuff, buy stuff, to the point of them just outright attacking you. So it's basically, you're gone to the Grand Theft Auto, I just want to destroy and kill everything when you go vampire. But I suggest that for, another playthrough, or at the very least late game, when you're maybe level 50 or higher. because once again, you don't get the well-rested bonus, and it's always good to be able to get that extra experience. And it's just too easy to get it too, simply just by sleeping. Storage space. This is where it really comes into play. As you know, you've only got a limited amount of carry weight. Now, this can increase whenever you increase your stamina. That said, folks who are probably going for a magic or a mage are not going to be wanting to invest a whole lot in stamina because they're primarily using magic attacks. But, you know, and they're usually not wearing heavy armor either, so that frees them up for some of that added weight. But if you've well-rounded your magic skills to a point, it's always good to invest in stamina just more than anything for that extra carry weight. And there's ways to get around that as well. There's certain potions you can get that'll increase your carry weight for a certain period of time. Or you can also get an enchantment to put on your boots that increases your carry weight by a certain amount. Now, you usually always keep a pair of those on hand so I can throw them on if I get overburdened. But eventually you're going to max out because there's just too much stuff to collect in this game, whether it's just raw materials for smithing, weapons that you've collected, and armor you've collected to sell because the stuff is heavy. You have, in this case, how I usually try to designate each space for certain stuff. So this drawer here, well, did have my alchemy stuff in it, but now that I have the alchemy lab, I moved it. So yeah, that one's free to put something else in. So here I'm putting my smithing materials. So we have our raw materials, and there's jewels in there because you can make jewelry and your different ingots, leather, basically anything that you're going to be using for smithing will be, I've got stored in there. This one I usually stow my armor and weapons in that I'm not using for whatever reason. It's stuff that I either just don't have use of yet, or I want to take the enchantment off it at some point, or put an enchantment on it, or it's just something that could be useful at some point. And I'm getting distracted here. So this one here, I think we were storing our extra potions in. So yeah, potions are kind of heavy, basically half a pound each. So carrying a lot of potions can overburden you in a hurry. And thankfully, there's a lot of potions. You will find a ton of potions. This is another reason why alchemy is kind of a hit or miss thing for some folks, because especially by the time you get into later, well, even this point in the game, you're always going to find a lot of potions, and they'll usually always be better than anything you can make yourself. Some of them are incredibly good. Not to say that's not a reason to pursue alchemy, but if you're, wanting good potions, yeah, it's still just, whatever you happen to find or can buy, which is not cheap either. Good potions are not going to be cheap. But anyways, you'll end up with a bunch, and so you'll need a place to stow the extras. So in here, I believe I was stashing my extra scrolls, because these are things I always forget to use. They're useful, but once again, they weigh about a half a pound each, but they usually have pretty high resale value on them, so they're worth hanging on to for when you need some money. And I don't think I have it. Well, yeah, I had something stashed in there, but I don't remember what anymore. So there's that. And then down here, since my cook pot is here, I usually keep my extra food ingredients in here. And the cool thing about Skyrim when it comes to cooking is you don't have to go learn recipes or anything. You just know them. As long as you have the ingredients, it'll let you make it. So I don't think I have any food on me at the moment. But yeah, if you have the right ingredients to make it, it'll be highlighted and you can make it. And cooked ingredients are always going to give you more benefit than raw ingredients. Maybe not dramatically more, but it'll almost always be more. So anyways, as you can see, you can get a lot of different effects from different types of foods. So they're a good alternative to potions, and they're cheap, because most food ingredients are cheap and you can find them all over the place. Another cool thing is for your books that you collect, if you should want to choose to collect them, you can actually store them on a bookcase and actually see them on the bookcase and even read them from the bookcase. Once again, this is good because there's some books worth having, and they weigh, they're heavy, like in real life, so they'll bog you down if you start collecting too many of them. Alright, so what else did I want to go over in this video? Oh, I want to go briefly over skills and the various skill trees real quick. Alright, so as I mentioned before, every race has different skills they have an affinity for. Now, for instance, usually if they don't have an affinity, a particular affinity for a skill, they'll usually be base. The base number for any skill is usually going to be 15 starting out. This is basically just your proficiency in that skill. When a skill is at least 20, then yeah, it's a skill that you have an affinity that race has a certain affinity for, and they're better at that, and they come with a little bit of a head start. That's why they're a higher number. To some of these even being up to 25. So restoration 20. So the Argonians actually got a little bit of a knack for destruction and restoration magic, and that's by default because I really haven't used hardly either of these at this point. Alteration as well. Now I have done some enchanting, but I believe the base level on the enchanting was probably 20 as well, or maybe 25. Smithing, that one was base 15, that one I had to raise. But of course, once again, sneaking was 25, lockpicking was 25, or actually 20, pickpocketing. Argonians actually start pretty high speech level as well. So once again, they've got an interesting mix of skills, in particular when you combine their more unscrupulous abilities with the ability to actually be a pretty potent mage as well, seeing as that they have actually some proficiency with destruction magic and restoration magic. So let's start with that. So this is your black mage, elemental mage tree here, casting fireballs, electricity, and ice. So this first one basically just allows you to cast novice level spells for half magic. So basically each spell requires a certain amount of magic points, and if it uses more than what you're capable of having, then you simply can't use that spell. For instance, I only have 130 points of magic. If the spell requires 256 points of magic, I'm not going to be able to do that. So a combination of, obviously, when you level up, increasing your magic gives you more to pull from. And as you make your way through the various skill tree skills on this tree, you'll be able to draw the amount of cost of more powerful spells down even more and more, to the point where you're able to cast higher level spells for a lot less magic. The other important one with almost any of these is dual casting. Dual casting overcharges the spell effects into an even more powerful version. So without this particular skill, if you put the same spell on two different hands, it'll simply just let you cast it individually from each hand. Whereas this way, it allows you to combine the two, overpowering the spell. So it doesn't matter in this case if it's a fire spell, lightning spell, ice, it's going to overpower it. Impact is important too, similar to bows, because some big enemies that can shrug off things will continue to charge you. This basically gives it a stagger effect when you dual cast your magic like that. Next, we have augments that basically improve the various elemental magic that you're using. So this tree focuses on your fire magic. Fire spells do 25% more damage, and I think the second one bumps it up to 50. And then these basically add an additional effect. Fire causes targets to flee if their health is low. it's kind of useful, especially if you're in a situation where you're getting there's just too many baddies on you. Anything to get somebody to run away and leave the fight is not bad, especially if they're injured and they're not going to last too much longer. So similarly here, frost damage paralyzes targets if their health is low. This one is actually a lot more useful, honestly. And then shock. And this one's actually pretty fun. Shock damage disintegrates targets to zero. So basically, this is probably the best of the three because it just literally causes them to die. They're not going to run away. They're not going to stop. They just die. So yeah, that's pretty much destruction. Restoration, of course, is going to be healing magic, and this is a kind of recurring pattern with all of these, where you're going to have spells that fall into different brackets of novice, apprentice, adept, expert, and master. And so it's just a matter of, you definitely want to work your way up these just to make sure that you can always cast these spells at an affordable amount of magic. Once again, your dual casting, same thing. It's basically overpowering your healing spell. This is an extremely useful skill to have no matter what type of mage you're trying to be. Magic regenerates 25% faster, and when you can get the second point in there, I think it bumps it up to 50. This is just a straight up excellent skill to have, just because it guarantees that you're always going to be regenerating your magic, you know, at a relatively fast rate. Avoid death. Once a day, heals 250 points automatically if your health falls below 10%. This is a really useful one to have. Can save your ass, basically keep you from getting killed from an accidental fatal hit. Pretty good on any character, any build. Next we have, whoops, trying to go to this one here. Regeneration. Healing spells cure 50% more. So just basically make sure your healing spell is more potent. All spells are more effective against undead. So typically, as you would not know or know, and like in a lot of games like this, positive spells, healing and health spells are the bane against the undead. So using these kinds of spells on undead enemies hurts them quite a bit and kills them. Spite, if I can get this to go to it. Healing spells also restore stamina. This is another useful skill, once again, if you're playing a fighter type, that can be incredibly useful. Just for the simple fact that you'll be able to restore your health and your stamina at the same time, which can be, in a lot of cases, exactly what you need, because if you're tapped out and your health is low, it's very likely that your stamina is tapped out as well, because you've been fighting like hell and you're getting bested. So being able to kill two birds with one stone, of course you are using it with a healing spell, but hey, that's a really useful skill. So let's see, what else do we have? This tree here, ward absorb, charge your magic. Wards recharge your magic when hit with spells. So this is a skill that's handy if you're playing, basically if you're wanting to have a good way of fending off other magic users, by simply, whenever you're using a ward, which is from a different school of magic, I think. Yeah, wards are not in this one. It's basically like a magic shield, for lack of a better way to define it. And by holding it up, you're basically expending magic, but when you get hit with the spell, it replenishes your magic. I guess it just kind of depends on how often you're fighting other magic users that you see a reason to do that. So, alteration. This is an interesting one. Okay, so typical, we're not going to spend too much on that. We know what that does. Once again, you're dual casting. And so, Armor Mage. Protection spells like Stone Flesh are twice as strong if not wearing armor. So once again, this just benefits, this kind of just rolls into the idea of being a mage and relying on magic. So in this case, this allows you to cast a spell on yourself that gives you the armor rating of wearing heavy armor, but without all the bulk and being slowed down. And also losing any benefits or perks you get from wearing robes. Because usually that's what gives you some of your best perks towards your ability to use magic, is on your robes. So, we got next, stability. Alteration spells have greater duration. So this is another useful one. Obviously, the longer a spell lasts like this, the better, because most of these spells are designed to basically, like that one, increase your armor rating. Let's see what else is there. Magic resistance, block 10% of a spell's effects. And that's kind of it. Once I have more alteration spells on hand, we can kind of get a better idea of what that's actually more about on that tree. So next we have Conjuration. Now this is your summoner tree, I believe. Alright, so Summoner. Cast Summon Atronachs or Raise Undead twice as far away. So it just basically increases the range for reanimating or summoning. Astromancy, double duration for Conjured Atronach. So basically that's always a good... This is almost kind of like your Necromancer. This is like Death Trap. You summon them out and you want to keep them out as much as possible. Elemental Potency, Conjured Atronachs are 50% more powerful. So this is kind of definitely your summoner tree on this one. We got dual casting the course, Mystic Binding, bound weapons do more damage. So once again, this is about if you're wanting to play a role that's focused more on magic, but while also being proficient in close quarters by using summoning spells to basically summon armor and weapons. If you like summoning weapons, then this is definitely something you want to focus on. Bound weapons can cast Soul Trap. Very useful, since obviously you can't put enchantments on these weapons. This is definitely an enchantment you would want to have on a weapon, so that's cool that that's on there. Bound weapons will banish summoned creatures and turn raised ones. So basically, if I understand this, it would banish if somebody has already summoned another Atronach. You could basically hit it and it sends it back to the other dimension, or it would cause their zombies to start fighting for you. If I'm wrong about that, someone definitely correct me. Alright, so now this is, yeah, your necromancy tree. This is more about zombie stuff here. So, greater duration for reanimated corpses. So if you're bringing up zombies, keeps them up longer. Reanimated undead have 100 points more health. So once again, same name, basically keeps them out longer, gives them more resilience. And once again, you can have 2 Atronachs or reanimated zombies. So, hey. Double the fun, double the pleasure. So that's your summoner tree there. That's basically if you're wanting to be a conjurer. Then there's illusion magic tree. Alright, so this one is definitely one that you really want to focus on if you want to make the most use of it early on. So dual castings right out the gate, one of the first ones you want to get, just because it increases the potency of them. Animage, illusion spells now work on higher level animals. Hypnotic gaze, calm spells now work higher level opponents. And this is actually, so this is just works up the different difficulty of spells. This is a good tree to follow up though, because once again, illusion spells, like all spells in this family, are going to work better on higher level animals. This is going to cause them to work better on people. Apparently they can hear you chanting. I'm not sure what that's about. Then we have this tree, which Nautic Gaze once again makes calm spells work better, and it shares bonuses with the other skills on that tree. This increases how fear spells work, rage spells, and illusion spells work on undead and Daedra and automatrons. So that kind of makes them almost unstoppable at that point. These are just really fun spells to use, not always the most practical, but it's just fun. If you're like me, like in Borderlands, I like to get spider ants to fight with bandits to piss off a bunch of Goliaths and get them raging around. This is kind of the same type of gameplay, to get a bunch of the NPCs and enemies to be just doing your work for you, more or less. Alright, alchemy. Potions you make are 20% stronger. Physician, potions you mix that restore health, magic, or stamina 25% more powerful. Benefactor, potions you mix with beneficial effects have an additional 25% greater magnitude. Each ingredient reveals first 2 effects. 50% resistance to all poison. All negative effects are removed from creating potions, and all positive effects are removed from creating poisons. Green Thumb, 2 ingredients are gathered from plants. Concentrated poison applied to weapons lasts for twice as many hits. That's kind of cool. Poison's 25% more effective. So, alchemy, interesting skill tree if you want to pursue it. Speech is one that I don't really put as much effort into as I should, but it can really pay off, especially if you're trying to get rich. So first off, basically haggling. Buying and selling prices are better. This is one that you can level up pretty quick, and it's one that I would, just because it guarantees you're going to get the maximum while spending the least. Bribery, can bribe guards to ignore crimes. Persuasion, attempts are 30% easier. Intimidation's easier. I usually never even pick these up. Just usually you're going to get a fair amount of experience in speech just by interacting through the story and what trade you do, and you'll actually get to a point where you can bribe. It won't always be successful with those perks, but it's not impossible. Allure, 10% better prices with the opposite sex. It can be useful, but you have to get this skill to keep going up the tree. Merchant, can sell any type of item to any kind of merchant. This is pretty useful because, as you may have noticed, if you're going to the blacksmith, she's only interested in buying armor, weapons, and materials for such things. She won't just buy or sell anything. Whereas the guy with the general store will buy or sell pretty much anything. If you go to the other, the hunter's place, he mostly focuses on bows and anything to do with archery. He won't really want to buy or sell anything else. This basically makes it so that you can sell anything to anybody. This is another one. Invest 500 gold with a shopkeeper to increase his available permanent gold. So as you notice, most vendors only have so much gold available to sell, to buy your stuff with. So basically, they run out of money, you can't sell your goods. This increases it. Of course, you have to give them the 500, but it increases how much they have available to work with. Fence, can barter stolen goods with any merchant you have invested in. So once again, if you gave them the extra 500, you can now sell stolen goods to them. You don't have to go through the fence, or there's a character who is part of the Thieves Guild storyline who will buy stolen goods from you, and there's the only one who will buy stolen goods from you. Master Trader, every merchant in the world gains 1,000 gold for bartering. So this, as I said, is the tree you want to focus in if you're really just trying to maximize your wealth. Alright. Pickpocketing, which could also maximize your wealth depending on what you want to do. This is something I've never really pursued that much, even when I was playing Khajiit characters, just because, I don't know, I just didn't like the idea of being a thief, I guess, or it just didn't seem like that interesting, even though there are points in the game where you do have to resort to a little pickpocketing. It actually can be a fun tree to toy with as well. So pickpocketing bonus of 20%. Item weight and value reduced pickpocketing odds. Night Thief, 25% chance of pickpocketing if the target is asleep. So obviously it's easier to get them if they're knocked out. Carrying capacity is increased by 150 if survival mode is. Whoa, let's see, that's one I wasn't even aware of. That's pretty cool. You can dramatically increase your carry weight with that one. Poison. Silently harm enemies by placing poison in their pockets. Interesting. That's another one. I guess I've never really thought to look at this tree that well. Cut purrs. Pickpocketing gold is 50% easier. Keymaster. Pickpocketing keys almost always works. Can pickpocket equipped weapons. Now that's the one I've seen some people do some funny stuff with on YouTube, where they've literally disarmed enemies. It can be ridiculous and overpowered, but it does require some dedication to this tree. And Perfect Touch can pickpocket equipped items. This is even more hilarious because I've seen people like literally strip their opponent naked, took their weapons, took all their armor off of them and everything, and just left them standing there naked and defenseless. So yeah, fun tree to fiddle with. Lockpicking. To be honest, lockpicking, especially just through the sheer skill building, you know, the number on it, we're at 42, and the fact that lockpicks are pretty plentiful in the game, unless you're just really impatient or not that good at that mini game, you can pick up some of the skills in this tree. There is another actually good reason to pick up skills in this tree, and it's basically so that you can reuse them. So there is a point where you can do, where if you max out a skill, like let's say we eventually get lockpicking to 100. When you get a skill to 100, you can make it legendary, and basically what that does is it basically refunds all the skill points that you put into it, and you get to start rebuilding it from scratch. It'll be slightly tougher this time. You're not getting as much experience. It's going to be a little bit tougher as far as giving you experience, but for the most part, in this case, stealth is a relatively, or in this case, lockpicking is something that is relatively easy to build up in this game. There's no shortage of locks to pick. Especially if you join the Thieves Guild, there's a room where you can just literally go in there and practice. And the beautiful thing is too, is whether you, even every time you fail and break a lockpick, you get experience. So anyways, the idea is to basically max out lockpicking and load it, like basically by every skill in this tree, and that way when you go legendary, you can cash out all of those and put them into other skills you'd rather put them into, and then start over again. So just out the gate, once again, just like with magic, you may have noticed different locks are rated differently, obviously by difficulty, and this improves your ability to unlock those types of locks. Then we have quick hands, able to pick locks without being noticed. So if you're really running the thieves angle on this, you can go with that. I've never really had to do this because it almost seems like it freezes time when you go into unlocking a lock. I've never actually got this skill, I don't think, and still been able to do that. Wax key automatically gives you a copy of a picked lock's key if it has one. That's a weird one, and you never really know if you're going to benefit from it or not. Let's see. Next we have Golden Touch. Find more golden chests. Treasure Hunter, 50% greater chance of finding special treasure. Now this is some stuff I never really took any consideration to, but these might be worth investing in legitimately. Locksmith. Pick starts close to the lock open position, so it's kind of a cheater thing for you. It gives you an idea of where you need to be at to pick the lock. Unbreakable. Lock picks never break. Once again, this one's just really not all that, for the simple fact that it's pretty easy to come by lock picks. In fact, there's a certain quest that will give you a super lock pick that's unbreakable and it makes any lock easy to get into. And then, yeah, master locks. So that's pretty much that. Next, Sneak, obviously. Now, this is a pretty good tree as well to legendary out with, because once again it's a relatively easy tree to max out, especially if you're playing a Khajiit or a Argonian or a Dark Elf, I believe. So yeah, this base one here is just going to increase your how hard it is for enemies to detect you when you're sneaking. And for the most part, you don't have to do too much. I usually like to max this out just for shits and giggles, but even at 25% right now, I've had enemies literally walk right up on me before they realize I'm there. Backstab. Sneak attacks with one-handed weapons now do 6 times damage. If you're going to play stealth, these skills are just worth having. The free extra damage is always worth it, especially as your sneak gets even better and better. Where this gets really nasty is with this next one. Sneak attacks with bows do 3 times damage. With this one, you're pretty much one-shotting everything. As long as they don't know you're there, you're going to wreck house. And then the most risky but rewarding is the Assassin's Blade. Sneak attacks with daggers now do a total of 15 times normal damage. So next, we have Muffled Movement. Noise from armor is reduced by 50%. Not a bad skill, not great, but you have to have it to get further up the tree. Lightfoot, you won't trigger pressure plates. This one is a lifesaver. Even if you're not getting that hurt by booby traps, they're just obnoxious, and this will keep you from setting off certain booby traps. It won't keep you from not setting off a trip line, but pressure plate traps you will avoid. Silent rolls. Sprinting while sneaking executes a silent roll forward. It's really just kind of silly and useless, but you kind of have to have it if you want to keep going up the tree. Next, silence. Walking and running does not affect detection. This really makes you a ninja here, because it basically, you almost don't even need to be crouched anymore. You can literally move around as freely as you want and still not be detected. Shadow Warrior. Crouching stops combat for a moment and forces distant opponents to search for you. I actually got this skill once before, and it does work surprisingly well. Not always, but if you feel you're getting overwhelmed and you're trying to duck out of combat for a second, this can be useful. Alright, light armor. So basically, if you're playing a stealth role, you are going to be using light armor, and hopefully light armor exclusively. You can mix armor, but with most of them, either of those trees, the light armor tree or the heavy armor tree, will penalize you, or at the very least you won't get a full bonus by wearing other types of armor. So usually the base one is this one, increases your armor rating. Obviously you want to hit this one up every chance you get, because it just increases the default strength of your armor. Custom fit, 25% armor bonus if wearing all light armor. So this one. You have custom fit on heavy armor as well. Does the same thing, and basically just puts you in a situation where you want to make sure you're just wearing heavy armor or light armor to get the full effect. Otherwise, you can mix and match. You can wear light armor and maybe wear a heavy armor headpiece or carry a heavy shield, but it would prevent you from getting that bonus. Actually, I think shields don't count for this. It's just, yeah, head, chest, hands, and feet. Alright, so unhindered. Light armor weighs nothing and doesn't slow you down when worn. So this is nifty. As you notice, most armor does have a weight to it, and it does affect how you move. And of course, that added weight is also detracted from your carry weight. So that's always a benefit to get this as well, because once again, your whole, even if you're wearing light armor in this case, the combined weight can be probably on average at least 40, 50, possibly 60 pounds that you're shaving off of your carry weight. This is even more useful on the heavy armor set, because you're shaving anywhere from 100 to 120 pounds off your carry weight, just guesstimation. Windwalkers, stamina regenerates 50% faster on all light armor. So once again, this is a massive perk that you get so long as you're wearing all light armor. And with a stealth build slash agility build like this, you really do want to have your stamina up and available at all times. Because basically, when stealth fails, you're going to find yourself in a fight. And if you're wearing light armor, possibly dual wielding, you need to be able to move and attack as quickly and as often as possible. And this guarantees that. So hold up a second. So custom fit, we had that. So matching set, additional 25% armor bonus when wearing a matching set of light armor. So in this case, it's like everything's the same type. You're wearing all glass armor, all elf armor. You're not wearing, say, glass armor helmet with an elf armor chest piece or whatever. They all have to be from the same armor set. And lastly, deft movement. 10% chance of avoiding all damage from a melee attack while wearing all light armor. This one, in Melee the Strat Guide, really couldn't say if it was worth it or not. I mean, it sounds great, but how effective it really is anyone's guess. Next, archery. So base 1 here, kind of the same thing. It just increases with each increment there, and obviously every time it's available to upgrade, you want to upgrade that. And this works for all the different weapon types. So we went with Eagle Eye so far. This is a really good one to have. Basically, pressing block while aiming will zoom in your view. Now, when you do this, it will slowly drain your stamina. And once your stamina is expended, you can't focus like that anymore, and you have to let it ease up. So you have to be sparing with that. But this can be also useful too if you're just trying to look at something from a distance and get a better view. In conjunction with this, we have steady hand. Zooming in with a bow slows time by 25%. This is a really nice one to have as well. It can basically make you a total badass as far as landing some really impressive shots from a good distance away. Over here we have critical shot, basically 10% chance of a critical hit that does extra damage. This one I usually get eventually, and you can increase it apparently. But basically with the stealth, and by the time you get some of the more powerful bows and arrows in your disposal, you really don't even need this. You could be hitting people in the ankle and still taking them out. Power shot. Here's what was mentioned before, similar with the magic. All arrows stagger all but the largest opponents 50% of the time. So once again, this is useful when you got some big goon, or worse yet, a troll or something charging up on you, and you're basically trying to take them out with a bow and arrow. This will hopefully slow them down. Next, Hunter's Discipline. Recover twice as many arrows from dead bodies. Now this one I actually kind of like. There's nothing more annoying than shooting an enemy, seeing an arrow in them, and then the game not letting you retrieve it. It's just like, come on, I see it there, let me have it. This just basically increases the ability to retrieve arrows. Now, some people, it's not that big of a deal, but me, I like my high-end arrows. And when you start wanting to use, say, orcish arrows or ebony arrows, the really high-end stuff, they're hard to come by. They're expensive and they're not easy to make. So being able to recover them is nice. That said, yeah, you can always use dwarf or elven arrows once you learn how to make them, and they're pretty freaking plentiful. They do end up becoming usually my default once I get to that point in the game. But at some point, there's times where I want a full quiver of ebony arrows, and the only way to guarantee that is by being able to at least kind of recoup some of what I'm shooting. Next, we have Ranger, able to move faster with a drawn bow. This is a useful skill. If you've played any archer at this point, you know that you don't move so well as fast when you're got the string drawn. So if you're in a fight and you're having to duck and dodge and try and take a shot, this is a good one to get. Quick shot. Make sure I'm not missing. draw the bow 30% faster. This is very, very useful. I will not deny. There's actually a bow that you can acquire in the game called the Zephyr bow that comes with this as a default. And it is noticeably impressive. You can draw this thing so fast. You have a rapid fire, Legolas style, elf archer on steroids, combining that skill and putting that enchantment on the bow and having this skill can be crazy. Bullseye, 50% chance of paralyzing the target for a few seconds. This one I've never actually got. I've never really maxed out my archery before, to be honest. This is one that I think if it works, it probably is amazing. And especially good, you know, once again, if you have enemies that are charging up on you, this can make all the difference between you getting the killing shot before they run up and slap you. Alright, one-handed, very similarly, this is our tree that's focusing on one-handed weapons. So this is your swords, your daggers, your hand axes, your bludgeons, maces. So first off is just your base one-handed damage. This goes across the board for all of them. If you jump over here, this increases your dual-wielding attacks or 20% faster. So if you want to use 2 swords, 2 axes, 2 maces, 2 daggers, a combination of either and any of those above, you'll be faster when dual wielding. Dual savagery, dual wielding power attacks do 50% bonus damage. So this is if you're wanting to go that route and do straight up offense. Fighting stance. Power attacks with one-handed weapons cost 25% less stamina. This is kind of the meat and bones of your fighting. When you hold down the attack button, you do a power attack that takes a chunk of stamina. These are the best attacks. These are more likely to do a lot of damage and even potentially get a critical, which can usually insta-kill an enemy. This once again applies to all power attacks, whether you're dual wielding or otherwise. Alright, Savage Strike, standing power attacks do 25% damage with a chance to decapitate your enemies. So once again, there's that critical kill chance. Can do a one-handed power attack while sprinting that does double critical damage. I've never gotten this one, but it sounds like fun. Then we have our Capstone here. Backwards power attacks add a 25% chance to paralyze the target. So each power attack can be done different ways, whether you're moving towards an enemy, away from an enemy, to the left, to the right, or just standing still. Your character will do a different power attack, depending on which direction you're moving and also what type of weapon you're using. So last we have the weapon specific perks. So first with swords, you have Hack and Slash. Or no, this is axes, my bad. Attacks with war axes cause extra bleed damage. So this increases up, you can get this bonus increased up to 3 times. So basically with axes, whenever you hit an enemy, you have a chance to do bleed damage, like where they'll take damage over time. The other thing I was going to mention is the difference between the 3 weapons is kind of boils down to speed and damage and weight. Swords are the lightest and the fastest, but they do the least amount of damage. Axes are medium. They're the second slowest. They're not as fast as swords, but they're faster than maces. They usually do a bit more damage than swords, but not as much damage as bludgeons, and of course their actual perk here is doing bleed damage. Bonebreaker. So this is your bludgeons, your maces. Now basically, attacks with maces ignore 25% of armor. So enemies that are armored, basically, it's going to ignore 25% of their armor. And I think when you max this out, it's like either 75 or 100%. So it's like as if they're not wearing armor at all. Once again, they're the slowest, but they also do the most damage outright. And like I said, their perk is they can ignore enemy armor. Blades, attacks with swords have a 10% chance of doing critical damage. So once again, they are the fastest. Even though they may not do the most damage, you're going to get more hits in with them, and this has a higher chance of doing critical hit damage, which means more chance of getting a basically an execution kill of some sort, a finisher kill. But yeah, that's the basic difference between, and daggers, obviously, blades are going to do cut damage. Two-handed. So very similarly, the weapons are the same: bludgeons, axes, and swords. The difference is these are big weapons that require both hands to wield. So first we have Skull Crusher. Attacks with Warhammers ignore 25% of armor. These are going to be similar to the perks for the single-handed versions of the same weapons. Once again, swords get that 10% chance to criticals. Axes get that extra bleed damage. So next we have Champion Stance. Once again, this just gives you standing power attacks. Use 25% less stamina. Two-handed power attacks while sprinting. Standing power attacks have a chance to kill your enemy. Sweep. Sideways power attacks with two-handed weapons hit the target. Hit all targets in front of you. So this is a bit of a crowd control technique, allowing you to hit multiple enemies at once. War Master. Backwards power attacks have a 25% chance to paralyze a target. Alright, hopefully I don't run out of time here. Blocking. So this is actually a skill that I underappreciated until I recently started building my Berserker Orc. But shields are kind of crazy and overpowered in this game. So, like the other stuff, this basically first one here just gives you a percent increase each time you have enough experience to get it. Basically just makes you better at blocking. Power Bash, able to do a Power Bash. This is a must. Basically, you can already swat an enemy with your shield, kind of like a jab punch. This just makes it way more powerful, actually dealing damage and staggering them, making it easier to continue attacking them with your weapon. Deadly Bash. Bashing does 5 times damage more. Or maybe this just basically, I don't know. I guess this just increases the damage of that attack. Disarming Bash. Chance to disarm when power bashing. Shield Charge. Sprint with a shield raised. Knocks most targets down. That's when it sounds fun. I've never got a chance to use. Block Runner. Able to move faster with a shield raised. That could be very useful. Blocking the shield reduces incoming fire, frost, shock damage by 50%. Very, very useful. Mages can really mess you up if you're at a distance and you're dependent on hand weapons. You're not even using the bow. This can help you close the distance big time. Deflect Arrows, another one. Arrows that hit the shield do no damage. So usually you'll take reduced damage when enemies hit your shield, but this gives you the full effect. Heavy Armor, real quick, just like light armor, well fitted, Tower of Strength, less stagger when wearing only heavy armor, so you get staggered less. Matching sets. Reflect Blows, 2% chance to reflect damage back to the enemy while wearing all heavy armor. Okay. Conditioning. Similarly, your armor doesn't weigh anything, doesn't slow you down. Fall damage is reduced. Lets you do more damage with gauntlets if you're fighting unarmed. That's when you can have fun with the Khajiit. And smithing. Now this is a very, very important tree. So this is just general smithing. Create steel armor weapons at Forges Improved. You can do this at level 20. And depending on what kind of build you're going with, if you're playing like this, a light armor character, you're gonna want it's gonna be 30 points one way or another, but you have the option of either going towards this direction with Elven smithing. This is gonna create light armor. Or if you go with the dwarf, it's going to create heavy armor, which is also orcish armor, ebony armor. Light armor is going to be your elven, your advanced armor, your glass armor. Dragon armor is going to be heavy armor. But as soon as you hit level 50, or 60, I'm sorry, in here, this is the goal. You can improve magical weapons and armor. This is the creme de la. This is the absolute skill that you want to master, because this basically will allow you to improve weapons that have been enchanted, even weapons that are really powerful that you get by completing certain quests. As you'll know, they usually can sometimes be low level, and it's disappointing. It has this cool enchantment. It's a one of a kind, but it just doesn't do enough damage compared to all the stuff you've been making and improving. Well, get